The Lion King is directed by Jon Favreau this time around and is a photorealistic remake of the original 1994 film. I say photorealistic because I can't say live action apparently, and neither can I really say CGI. There's a huge debate. So I'm just gonna say photoreal. It looks realistic. Simba is next in line to the throne after his father Mufasa, which creates a rift because originally it was supposed to be his uncle Scar. And in a way to get the throne for himself, Scar comes up with a really nasty scheme which throws Simba into a position where he is now suddenly having to challenge his own uncle for what is rightfully his. To those people who know me very personally, the sentence "I love the Lion King" is one of the greatest understatements of all time. Because I don't just love The Lion King, I'm pretty sure I would be nothing without The Lion King. This is not a joke. I think I saw that film every day for 2 consecutive years until the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie came out. Then I saw that movie consecutively for like 2 years until Spider-Man 2 came out. It's a film that has pretty much everything in it, but really the reason I connect with it so much, and I think most people do, is because it has a heart, it has charm, it has this really like passionate soul and commitment to this story, and it's made with a lot of love and care, and the idea of being able to take something like the blueprint of a Shakespeare play, Hamlet, and make it into this kind of a film. And so the idea of someone coming up to you and saying, hey, yeah, we're gonna make a remake of that, is immediately like, really? I mean, is that really the movie you want to remake? And in terms of visuals, I would say that this is a phenomenal movie. It looks gorgeous. There are sequences in this visually that are so brilliantly done that I'm honestly amazed at the level of detail they have. There are little minute details that are so perfectly rendered that it just shows you how far technology has come, and you have to just stop, take a breath, and process what you just saw in that regard and really give it the praise it deserves. On that note itself, it's worth seeing on a gigantic screen because, oh my god. The voice acting also for the most part is really good. I would say the standouts were Chiwetel Ejiofor as Scar and Seth Rogen and Billy Eichner as Pumbaa Timon. I think they all did a really good job, and I think the thing I liked about Scar is that he was doing his own version of Scar. He's not trying to be Jeremy Irons with a different voice. And I did appreciate that. He brought his own spin to it, and I think he did a really, really good job with that. And Timon and Pumbaa were great. It was great to see them again. Seth Rogen as Pumbaa is perfect casting, honestly, and pretty much everybody in the world has already said that. I feel like I'm the last person reviewing this because everybody I know has seen this film. I'm like one of the last people actually seeing it. But I still have to do this review, regardless of the time. And I think I'll still take my time with this one because I do have a lot to say, and as a massive Lion King fan, it's just, there's a lot to cover here. Hans Zimmer's score is also really great. It's really wonderfully done stuff, and it's nice to hear the new arrangements that he's done for it for the most part, even though it is mostly the same score. It's a lot of the same notes, it's a lot of the same feeling and, the orchestra and tone, but for the most part, it is the exact same thing. So take that as you will. And this is where I start to enter the negatives, because a lot of the film's positives that you could point out as, oh my god, it's still got the emotional beats, it's still got that story, it's still got this amazing, set of events, and it's still beautiful, and it's still, it's still got that impact in there. Each one of those things can be followed up with a but, and that is all the same thing. It's in the original film. And one of the things about this film that does bother me is the fact that it's the first 3 words I said about the original Lion King: heart, charm, and soul. The Lion King, this new one, has none of those things. It's very vapid in that regard, and it feels extremely dull because of it. And that is something that is crushing to say, because I wanted to give this new version a better chance than it actually gives the audience. A lot of the people in my theater really applauded. I'm sure they really loved it. And in a way, I can see that happening for a lot of people because it is essentially following the same beats that the original is. But that's it, really. But let's hypothetically say that you are making a shot-for-shot remake of an originally pretty perfect film. Why would you want to remove the character from it? Like, here's your chance to actually add more character to it and maybe make it resonate more for younger audiences. In fact, if you are someone who is watching this film for the first time and this is the medium you're choosing to watch it, it might end up being long term not very effective, because in the short term it will be like, oh my god, this is lovely, I understand why people love this film so much. But then you'll watch that animated film maybe down the line and you'll be like, wait a minute, this has way more personality to it, like compared to the new one. Why is that the case? It's nice to hear James Earl Jones as Mufasa again. Don't get me wrong, he's definitely still got it. It brings a smile on my face whenever I hear that man's voice on screen. They tried to expand on a few ideas and concepts that the original one had, but it doesn't go beyond a certain point, especially after the stampede sequence. Because until that point, there's something they do with the hyenas which I thought was like interesting at first, but then, right after the stampede happens, the film basically goes beat for beat the original film all over again. And it just seems to completely give up on the idea that there were a few new things introduced. Another major issue that the film runs into is the fact that animation wise, it's a very emotional film. And not just in terms of the content, but in also the characters' reactions and expressions. There's a constant kinetic energy to the way characters, emote in the original film that you just cannot replicate when it comes to live action. There are limitations. There are certain things you cannot do, and somewhere along the way, it feels like the creators of this movie realized that, because there are attempts that they've made to go around it and try something else and not fall into that hole where they're essentially, trying to do a pale, imitation of it, which is way too unrealistic. But because of that, there are certain movements of characters that are solely missing that gave them so much character the first time around. And one of the major culprits of this is, unfortunately, Scar. Because one thing I noticed while watching the original film the other day was that Scar doesn't stop. He's constantly moving around. Scar never stays still except for one shot in the movie when he's staring at something. I'm not going to spoil it just in case you've not seen it. But except for that, every time he's talking or if he's doing something, his eyebrows are always moving, his eyes are always moving, his mouth is always moving. He's never still. But in this film, there are lots of points like that, and they can't do it the same way, obviously, because in this film, realism is not quite like that. And certain other things, like for example, lions can't hug the way they do in the original film. So that lovely moment where Mufasa and Rafiki hug, not there in this movie. But then that's fine, those are things I'm okay with. But a lot of facial animation is also really missing. Simba screaming no is just like no. It doesn't look like no, it is like an anguished face that you see in the original film. There are also a lot of points where humor is completely removed. Like in the case of Rafiki, he has no humor at all. Also, his entire sequence about, the past can hurt, but the way I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it. That's gone. That's not in this movie anymore. I don't know why that's the case. They've seemed to have cut a few corners. Be Prepared is barely in the movie. That entire awesomeness is just gone. There's a shot in it which is like there right at the end just to, emote, like you create the same effect that the original one did. But then it's like, listen, that's way too little, And there's a huge conversation that's happened that was probably added in there at the last second because of the backlash that people were giving it originally. And frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly what happened, because it feels like it was added in at the last second to create sort of a baseline so that fans could be satisfied by it. Also, I know a lot of people have pointed this out, but hilariously enough, Can You Feel the Love Tonight takes place at like 1:30 in the afternoon. So that was pretty great. That was weird to see. But here's what I'm trying to hit home with this. If you're not going to expand on certain things after a certain point, and you're not going to try and showcase the things that we've already seen before in a new light with a new voice, what was the point? You sort of end up in a very weird zone here, because Lion King diehard fans also don't want you to change much, because if you change a lot, then they get pissed. If you're someone who does something the same, people will get pissed because it's like, but I have the original movie. Why would I need to see this new one if you're basically just going to give me the same thing with an updated photoreal technology? And so you kind of end up in a like dead space, which is like, then why do it at all? But after watching this film, I kind of have to really ask the question, aside from game changing visual effects, what was the point of this? What does this add? How does this make Lion King a new experience to look back on? Because after watching the film, my first immediate thought was, I'm gonna go back to my apartment and I'm gonna watch the original one again. And I would probably enjoy that a lot more. And that's not something that you want out of a new film. But that being said, I know a lot of people will still love it because it is essentially that original film again. And if you wanted to see it in that new, cool, realistic looking medium, that's cool. And I hope that you guys enjoy the film for that. In summation, if I really had to sum up this movie, I would do this. Imagine you're in school, all right? You didn't do your homework one day, but you were kind of like, okay, there's some time before the class starts. I'm going to talk to the smart kid in the classroom and be like, hey, did you do your homework? And if they say yes, I can copy off that homework and I can give it to the teacher and be like, totally was on that thing, you know? But there's going to be that point where the teacher is looking at the two answers, going to be like, you gave this more attention, smart kid. You, on the other hand, did just copied it. You know, it doesn't feel like you really thought about this answer. It feels like you just took this down exactly the way, but you're not giving it that kind of thought that was supposed to be given to this answer. Instead, you just copied it. That's what this movie ends up being for the most part. It feels like you've done a lot of these things, but you're missing the point. In this case of The Lion King, it's basically the original film, but it's missing, besides the heart and charm, one major element: soul. I'm gonna give The Lion King a 6.5 out of 10. I'm really disappointed to say that as someone who is a massive fan, but if you are someone who really loves this film, I hope you do. I hope you enjoy this film for what it is. It's probably gonna make a lot of money anyway, so yeah. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Look forward to more reviews very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.